I'm Eric Goldberg. Welcome to my studio. And I'd like to tell you today about how this print called June Morning was put together. First of all, the subject for June Morning was outside the back window of my house and studio. The inspiration began as an idea and later became a watercolor. This watercolor was sent off to the Albany Print Club, and they were given 3 choices, and this is the image that they chose for the print. So once this was approved and ready to go, the next step was to take this image, which is full-size image, 16 by 20, and transfer this onto a copper plate. This is a sheet of solid copper, and it's also 16 by 20, and the idea was to get the image onto here. Ordinarily, I would work right on the image itself. I would just draw spontaneously on the plate. However, since I'm working from a watercolor, I need to take the image and put it on here. So what I did is I did a tracing using the old conventional tracing paper. I traced my original, and then I transferred that onto the plate. Now the plate itself was covered with a ground. The ground is made of asphaltum, which is like tar. That's why it sounds like the word asphalt. Now asphaltum is a hard ground that you can touch, and the idea is that once you scratch through the asphaltum and put it in acid, the acid will eat down into those lines. You notice the little line right in it? That line would be etched or eaten into the plate. So the tool that was used to do the drawing was a pin tool like this. It's a steel tool. So once again, you just scratch into the ground, and once that line breaks through the ground, the copper is exposed and the acid will eat down into the plate. Now once the drawing is completed and all the shading and preliminary lines are put in, I take it down to the basement in the house here. I submerge the plate in acid, and the acid eats my drawing into the plate. I then bring it back up here, clean it up, ink it, and I push the ink down into the lines and then clean it off the top by squeegeeing off the top. The next step, a tarlatan, which is a piece of cloth very similar to a ballerina's tutu. And that's used to continue to clean off the surface. And then I print it on the printing press. This is the printing press. This press was originally built for me in 1975. I designed it. I used Actually, I looked at some pictures of Durer's press, Albert Durer's press, and from that I designed a press. His press was made out of wood, exclusively, if you can believe that. And once the plate is run through the press, these blankets, which help push the ink down into the grooves, come off. This was the first image. This is number 1. This is right off the press. This is the foundation of the print itself. Then I need to put some shade in, some value. Now you notice there is some shading here, and that's done in terms of hatching, cross-hatching, and even some stippling. Stippling are little dots. But to get large blocks of value in, I need to do a process known as aquatint. Aquatint is a process in which the areas that I want to keep white are blocked out. The longer I then put that in the acid, the darker the plate becomes. You notice everything's kind of the same in areas. What I need to do then is I went into the plate itself with a polishing tool known as a burnisher, which is made of steel. Steel is, of course, harder than copper, so I'm able to polish areas and I can get degrees of value. This is the next step. This is what happened. After I polished it, there were numerous steps in between these two, but this was the next step. Now once the original plate, the master plate, is all set, I then needed to make the color plate. So you notice there are these areas of color now on that plate. There are areas with no color, and there are areas with color. And that was done by taking another tracing of the master plate. This area was green, and this was brick color, and this was brick color. You notice that these are copper, and the rest is silvery looking. This plate and the master plate had to be steel plated after the whole process. Steel plating is a process of adding just a very thin layer of steel over the copper. Because this is an addition of 100, the copper would wear out by the time we did 100. Now the master plate has been steel faced completely. This is a copper plate, but it's been steel faced, just so it'll last longer. And with this process, I was able to pull 100 prints. So once the two plates had been made, I then had to print them to make sure that everything lined up. That's called registration. The edition itself of 100 prints was printed by a master printmaker named Cindy Ettinger here in Philadelphia at the C.R. Ettinger studio. And you'll notice down in the corner, you can see her little mark on the finished prints, C.R.E. I'm so glad the Albany Print Club chose that one particular watercolor. I'd given them 3 choices, but that was my favorite. Thanks.